this is my review of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Okay, so after finding out that their lottery ticket that they found in the trash was indeed a winner, Okuyasu, Josuke, and Shigechi all go to the bank to have it redeemed, since that's where you're supposed to go to redeem lottery tickets, because it's a formality thing. You're supposed to go in and redeem it at the bank, because the bank will be able to verify whether or not it's actually legit and where it actually came from. And they're the people who can pay out the 5 million yen that they owe the boys. So naturally, the bank is where they need to go, and they go to redeem the lottery ticket. However, the bank examiner that they meet with gets suspicious about the fact that these 3 boys who are still in high school have somehow managed to acquire 5 million yen, and proceeds to give them a hard time about it, trying to prove that they did indeed not get the lottery ticket the way, in a legal way, as he puts it. And sure enough, he asks them several questions about where they got the lottery ticket, who bought the lottery ticket for them, and that kind of thing. And as he quickly points out, not only are there no stores in Morio where you can actually pick up a lottery ticket, but their names aren't even on the back. As it turns out, the guy who originally bought the lottery ticket wrote his name and phone number on the back. And though Josuke tries to play it off as somebody, this is one of their friends he knew giving them their names and phone number so they could write it on the back. The bank examiner doesn't believe them and calls up the guy, and starts to tell him that he actually about his lottery ticket and about how he won 5 million yen. And Josuke realizing that they're in a bit of a pickle if the guy actually finds out that he won the lottery ticket, uses Crazy Diamond to actually remove some of the kanji on the back. Not enough to completely erase it and remove it, but enough to basically change it enough so that the last name is different. And sure enough, the bank examiner starts fumbling when he realizes that the names are different, and he concedes and gives the boys their proprietary check, pointing out that it'll be able to be cashed in 3 days time, and that they should come back then. At which point Shigechi, after they leave the bank, gloats about how he now has 5 million yen, which upsets Josuke and Okuyasu, since Josuke used his stand to get them that 5 million yen check, and that they work together, so they should split it half and half like they said. But of course Shigechi doesn't want to listen, so Okuyasu socks him in the jaw and takes the check from him. And then the two leave, and Josuke and Okuyasu have a conversation about Shigechi and point out that they do feel kind of bad for using him, point out that they probably shouldn't have used him like they did, but it'll work out since they're going to be holding onto the check and will get 2.5 million yen from it, and which they're excited about. However, Shigechi, who has used his stand to listen in on their whole conversation, actually points out that he will never forgive them for what they did, and tries and uses Harvest to not only attack Okuyasu's ear, but take the check back and retreat with it. At which point the 2 boys try to engage Shigechi in a fight, but Shigechi gloats, pointing out that if they try to approach him, they'll die. And they quickly realize that that they can't actually fight his stand directly, because he uses his stand to immobilize Okuyasu by singing it in the legs repeatedly until he can't move, and basically messing up his legs. And Josuke quickly realizes that there are indeed colony members of Harvest underneath Josuke's pants, underneath Okuyasu's pants, and tries to swat them, but it's like swatting a mosquito. Killing one isn't going to defeat Shigechi, and then he just kind of retreats and runs away while they're distracted with that, as Josuke patches him up. At which point they give chase after Shigechi, but Shigechi, I think it is obvious, Shigechi is very out of shape. He's fat and he's short, so those are not a very good combination of things to be doing it for long distance running. and eventually he does indeed trip, and Josuke and Okuyasu almost catch up to him, pointing out that he shouldn't have been running, since he's definitely in no shape to actually run. But then Shigechi reveals that was part of his plan and uses his stand like a treadmill to basically just run as fast away as possible. He rolls onto his back, uses his stand to hoist himself up into the air, and then he just kind of moves at a breakneck pace, and they're unable to keep up with him. And eventually he goes up a building, and they're unable to actually follow him at first, until Josuke gets a really brilliant idea, using their stands in a similar way to how Shigechi used his to scale the building. And sure enough, it works. They throw each other up, they use their stand to grab onto the ledge, and then they just hoist each other up bit by bit until they get to the top. At which point they get to the top of the roof. Shigechi is climbing over some pipes, and they proceed to chase after him on the pipes. But Shigechi points out that was a stupid idea, and sure enough used Harvest to disassemble the pipes so that they fall, and gloating that his harvest really is amazing. But Josuke points out that his stand is equally amazing, and uses Crazy Diamond to put the pipes back in place, and then they finally are able to corner Shigechi. However, as they get there, both Josuke and Okuyasu become a bit woozy and begin to collapse, at which point Shigechi reveals what he did. As it turns out, he used his stand to inject alcohol directly into the veins, using some alcohol that he found, and uses that to immobilize them. And now that they're largely incapacitated, they are now quickly surrounded by Harvest, who basically uses his stand to keep them at bay and keep them from approaching him, pointing out that they shouldn't have underestimated him, and that when push comes to shove, he can use Harvest pretty effectively, and is a pretty dangerous opponent to be sure. And sure enough, Okuyasu gets punched in the eye, and Josuke closes his eye after realizing that's about to happen to him as well. And after a bit of that, Okuyasu decides that enough is enough, and pulls out some of the money that Shigechi loaned them, stating that in addition to that, he's also giving them some of his own cash so that they'll leave him alone and let bygones be bygones. And while Shigechi is immediately happy about the fact that they're willing to pay up, Okuyasu gives a glance to Josuke, and it's quickly revealed that his real plan is to lower Shigechi into range so that they can actually either beat him up or steal the lottery ticket back. And Shigechi too late figures this out, and Okuyasu uses the hand to snatch the lottery ticket out of his hand and grab it and hands it to Josuke. At which point Shigechi tries to take it back, gloating that they can't still win and that he'll just take it back. But then Josuke reveals that they've already won, and then he rips up the check and casts it to the wind, which basically pointing out that not only is Crazy Diamond the only stand who can put it back together, but Harvest is the only one that can actually go and collect it. And sure enough, once it scatters to the wind, Shigechi uses Harvest to go gather the pieces, which are now scattered across Morio, and realizes too late that he's now left himself completely defenseless. At which point Okuyasu socks him in the jaw again, and they beat it into his head that they were a team this entire time, and that they should split it evenly, as they discussed. At which point Shigechi realizes why they've been at each other's throats this whole time. They were trying to split it into halves and not thirds. It wasn't even. So and once he realizes that, he has no problem actually forking over the money they're due, because as he points out, he was blinded by greed, and he didn't realize that they could have just split it up into thirds. And sure enough, after Harvest recollects the check and Crazy Diamond puts it back together, they do exactly that. They go to the bank examiner, they redeem the check and take their money. Although Shigechi does try to pull one last shenanigan to try and get as much money as possible, but it doesn't work. Since he tries to have it divvied up by how many stands they have, but since Harvest is technically one stand, it doesn't fly for either of the boys. So, yeah, it just kind of ends with them collecting their money and parting ways. So, yeah. But I should mention this. Shigechi's Harvest is scary. So, not so much in the way of like a direct combat, but the fact that it's able to maneuver its stand user around so effectively with little effort, and he's able to easily outspeed two people who were running on foot. Yeah, it's definitely fast, and also the fact that it can inject any liquid it wants into another person's body to slow them down or incapacitate them is pretty effective. It's pretty effective at incapacitating them, as shown with Josuke and Okuyasu and the alcohol that Shigechi used his stand to inject them with. So, yeah, Shigechi isn't really the smartest tool in the shed, but he knows how to use his stand effectively in combat, and that's interesting. He's able to use his stand to just incapacitate anybody he wants, and there's not much many people can do about it. But the main problem Shigechi has is that he overestimates the power of his stand, which really isn't that powerful in direct combat, and is mostly use tricks to incapacitate people. So, yeah, I can imagine that coming back to bite him at some point when he tries to go into a fight with another stand user and loses. But yeah, Shigechi can be effective if people underestimate him, which Josuke and Okuyasu did. So yeah, it shows that not only is Shigechi a formidable opponent, but he's willing to be fair, provided he knows that it's being fair. It took him a few minutes for it to sink in, but he eventually did realize that the reason he was so upset was because they split it in half instead of thirds, which wasn't exactly fair. Everybody was getting slighted, and that was what triggered his greed. He didn't want that to happen, and he realized somebody was going to get cheated. So he just tried to he's trying to suppress that subconsciously, but he did eventually figure it out. So that's my review of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. What did you guys think? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also be sure to follow me on Facebook and on Twitter in the description below. And also be sure to check out my Patreon in the description below as well. It's only a couple bucks a month. It really helps you out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that I was saying thanks. So be sure to check this out in the description below as well. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace!